Welcome to See You on the Other Side, where the world of the mysterious collides with the world of entertainment. A discussion of art, music, movies, spirituality, the weird, and self-discovery. And now, your hosts, musicians and entertainers who have their own weakness for the weird, Mike and Wendy from the band Sunspot.
Well, I'd like to say it's nice to be back in Wisconsin, but with like 6 inches of snow.
Yeah, we were welcomed home by Mother Nature.
Yeah.
With a huge storm.
Right. The past 16 hours have been oogly here in Madison. It was nicer before we left. At the beginning of March, it was like 65 degrees or something like that. Anyway, while I love Wisconsin, coming back to the snow was kind of a downer.
You know, I was shocked by the temperature, actually. It wasn't even that cold. Like, it wasn't below freezing, but it felt so much colder. It's like my body recalibrated itself while we were down in the nice warm weather.
It recalibrated for summer, and now summer is over.
Boo.
Yeah, so we're back. And that's okay. But for those of you who haven't been paying attention to the last couple of episodes, Wendy and I went on a music and paranormal tour over the past week and a half. We started in Cincinnati, told some ghost stories, and played some songs inspired by the topics we talk about on the podcast in Cincinnati. Then we went on to Nashville, baby.
Oh, yeah, baby.
And had fun playing on Broadway, met some characters, and had a good time. So Nashville, and then New Orleans, which is full of haunted history.
That was so cool.
Yeah.
Galveston. Haven't been there in a long time.
Yeah, and Galveston, which was a lot of fun. And then San Antonio, Texas.
That's right.
Which we had some fun times on St. Patrick's Day. And then we ended it with a couple of shows in Austin, Texas during South by Southwest. And that was a marvelous time because it's just packed, interesting people, and lots of bats.
And then we had a super downer drive home on my birthday.
Yeah. That's right.
Which, you know, the ride home always tends to be a downer, at least, I mean,
it does.
Because you're coming off of all the excitement of all the shows and seeing so many friends and family, and then it's just like, oh, yeah, we're going back to a snowstorm and
right. So,
but there's plenty of exciting things happening here, so
right.
Shouldn't be depressed about it.
So it was a super fun tour. The name of our band is Sunspot, in case you guys haven't heard it yet.
That's right.
So we also, on this tour, we released an EP of brand new music. And the name of that EP is American Monsters. And so, right, by the time that this podcast goes up, you'll be able to download that EP at sunspotuniverse.com.
Correct. Always like to give away our newest stuff because we're proud of it. And we want people to hear it. And
we know as soon as you hear it, you're going to want to come for the rest of it. And especially because these are songs inspired by the things we talk about on the See You on the Other Side podcast. And they're fun, catchy rock songs about weird things, and we love to sing them for you. And so, American Monsters and you get that at sunspotuniverse.com. If you are in Wisconsin, April 2nd, the day after the topic of today's podcast, April Fool's Day, you can check us out in Madison at the Red Zone. We'll be releasing them, and the CDs will be free.
Free?
Not
did
all.
You say free?
I did say free. Free as in beer.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah. And they will be free at the Red Zone in Madison on April 2nd. So I know we have a lot of Wisconsin listeners. And get your butt down to the Red Zone and party with us.
Yes. Can't wait. That's going to be so fun.
Lent is over, so you can let it all out.
Oh.
I gave up sobriety for Lent this year.
Oh, you.
Well, I did because the first part of the year, like January and stuff, I was really a teetotaler. Like I was working out and
you were
eating right.
Healthy living, not drinking beer and anything. And then like, I went on vacation and that was in the middle of I went on vacation during Fat Tuesday because Easter's so early this year. Fat Tuesday and Ash Wednesday are really early this year, the beginning of Lent. So the beginning of Lent was kind of like the beginning of my party period. So I had like opposites day. But I know for everybody that celebrated Lent and sacrificed something, now it is time to celebrate and let it all hang out at the Red Zone. But anyway, sunspotuniverse.com is where you can check out the music of our band, Sunspot, and we sing about the weird lives we lead, and I think you'll enjoy it. Yes.
Actually, real quick, the songs on the EP They have episodes associated with them too. American Monsters is associated with our interview with Linda Godfrey, the author, and the woman behind The Beast of Bray Road.
Oh, yes.
Seeing is Believing is the episode Silver Screen Saucers with UK author Robbie Graham. And Push is based on the conversation we had with Dr. Luis Monero about out-of-body experiences. So it's kind of rock and roll versions of those episodes that you can check out. Anyway, sunspotuniverse.com. This is enough for the shameless promotion. We'll shamelessly promote more at the end.
It is shameless promotion, but it is stuff that we worked really hard on, and we're very proud of it, and we're just excited to get it out there. So
yeah,
I don't mind talking about it.
No, and I don't mind you guys listening to it, so go in and check it out. Okay, Wendy, we got a zombie update.
Whoa. Oh, yes.
Zombies are all the rage right now because there's only 3 more episodes of The Walking Dead this season, and it's gotten extremely intense. Now, I keep up with The Walking Dead, and I still cannot believe there is a zombie apocalypse television show. I mean, I can't believe, period, there's a zombie apocalypse television show. And also, 8-year-old Mike cannot believe that it's the most popular show on television.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that is pretty amazing. They're going to make a spin-off next year, Dancing with the Zombies. Where you like, no, it's like dancers have to avoid getting eaten. That's not our zombie update. Our zombie update is, okay, so remember that we did the zombie apocalypse episode last May.
I remember.
Okay, and we talked about this certain kind of parasite that lives inside cats. This parasite wants to get inside cats' bellies. Like, that's where it lives. So
okay.
if you're a mouse and you have this parasite, it makes you do stupid things like jump at a cat because it wants to get eaten. Toxoplasmosis gondii. Not
whoa.
Right, and not Gandhi like the great spiritual leader of India. Right. Gandhi like Gondii. I should have said Toxoplasmosis gondii. No relation.
Nice.
Anyway, a new study, and I got this from a Gizmodo article yesterday, published in the Journal of Clinical Psychiatry. A new study by Emil Kokoro, a professor of psychiatry at the University of Chicago. He's been studying people with this thing called intermittent explosive disorder.
Oh gosh, I know some people who have that.
Right. Well, I'd never heard of it before. Right.
No.
I get it.
Let me get a joke.
I see. Montezuma's Revenge kind of thing. This is
it's a band van thing.
You guys wouldn't understand.
Usually. Oh. Anyway.
IED, intermittent explosive disorder, also known as rage disorder.
Okay, that sounds scary.
Right. And also, speaking of zombies, in the movie 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later, the virus that infects people and causes them to want to beat up and munch on other people is called the rage virus.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so that's just another little connection there. But let me explain to you what intermittent explosive disorder is.
Please do.
In the non-gastric area. It is often involves repeated, sudden episodes of impulsive, aggressive, violent behavior or angry verbal outbursts in which you react grossly out of proportion to the situation. Road rage, domestic abuse, throwing or breaking objects, or other temper tantrums may be signs of intermittent explosive disorder. These outbursts cause people significant distress, negatively impact their relationships, work, school, and they can have legal and financial consequences. It's a chronic disorder that can continue for years, although the severity of outbursts may decrease with age. Treatment involves medications and psychotherapy to help people control their aggressive impulses. That's from the Mayo Clinic definition of the rage disorder. So if you know people that get out of hand and go, I mean, I used to call them hothead, right?
Right.
Or like
or a surly Sal.
Right. That person lost their, but, so, and then you just think, okay, that guy just can't control his anger. There might be some kind of a parasite.
Or a cause.
Yeah. Just like it causes that strange behavior in mice running towards the cat and acting crazy. A lot of people have Toxoplasmosis gondii because everybody has a cat. I'm looking at cats walking around my condo right now.
That's
so
right.
I probably have
it. Say hello.
Hey, you did. As soon as you came on, everybody's like, hello. And then you just, meow. Okay. So here's, let me get some quotes in here. For this most recent study, several other researchers examined the rates of toxoplasma infection in 358 subjects. They found healthy people had an infection rate of 9%, while people with IED had an infection rate of 22%. What's more, people infected with the parasite, whether they had IED or not, had higher levels of anger and aggression, but not depression or anxiety. This indicates that the parasite may be a major factor in causing the rage disorder.
Wow. That's really interesting.
Yeah. So the next step in the research is they're studying the Amish population in Maryland.
Okay.
Because they have a hugely high infection rate of toxoplasma.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So they want to study the genetic lines to see if genes are a factor in these mental health disorders, and also the households to see if there's different risk factors that might increase the infection rates.
Well, it sounds to me like that's just yet another reason to not have a cat.
I understand.
But actually, it makes me think that there's got to be a way for people to prove that they either have it or don't, because otherwise somebody might just be a jerk or a hothead.
Right.
And then they're like, oh, no, it's the parasite.
Well, he says in the article, he's like, people call me for legal reasons all the time, and they want to see if they can use it in court.
Oh my goodness.
And he says, no. These people are completely responsible for their actions. Like, it's not something that makes you do this. It's just it just might be a factor. And also there's no, causation correlation does not equal causation. That's the mantra of the show. And so there's no proof yet that there's any cause there. But and speaking of, my cat just jumped on the table like he knows we're talking about him.
He does.
And people try to use it in court. And he says that you only want to use it for sentencing. Don't try to use it as some kind of defense.
Proof or whatever.
Yeah. So try to, you can try to use it to try to get treatment for it once you're actually in the pen or something like that.
But you've already done something bad. Like, it's your own fault. It's not the parasite's fault.
No, you can't blame it on the parasite when you decide to punch somebody at a bar because they stepped on your shoe. That's my favorite shoe.
Interesting.
Anyway. So that's just our zombie apocalypse update of the week.
Well, there was another thing I thought you might have mentioned, which was that I was back visiting our friends, the Deddersons.
Oh, yeah.
Last night. So this is also zombie related, but just on a personal note, that the character that I play in that sitcom has returned for the next episode. So went down to Rockford. The Deddersons is an internet sitcom about zombies living after the apocalypse. And it's on YouTube, and our song, I Was a Teenage Zombie, is the theme song for the show.
And we actually wrote I Was a Teenage Zombie for the zombie apocalypse episode.
That's right. So it all ties together.
Yep.
But the character that I portray is Josie, and she also happens to be a female drummer, although
right.
her personality is a little different than mine. But
albeit a dead one with a taste for brains.
That's right. But you'll be able to catch that episode, I think, in a couple weeks here. So
we'll put a link to it from the See You on the Other Side Twitter and Facebook and things like that. You'll be able to check that out.
Cool.
Okay, so the meat of the program today, speaking of brains, is April Fool's Day. Coming up in just a few days, April 1st, every year, April Fool's Day. Here's a little tip. Don't believe anything you read on the internet.
Put a little reminder in your phone right now.
Yeah.
On your calendar. Because, man, it seems like every year I fall for something.
Yeah. Yeah, don't talk to your girlfriend before noon, or, just in case she sits there, she's like, oh my God, the stick is pink. And then you got to leave town.
Yeah. There's always a bunch of those pregnancy
right on Facebook or something like that. It's like, oh, I'm expecting. Or Sarah Silverman did one year that she's like, oh, I'm expecting. And then she was showing her belly. And then she's like, it's a burrito baby. Or that was the end of the thing.
Oh, man.
And it's like, oh, Sarah Silverman's showing her baby bump on, Facebook or whatever. That's gauche. But it ended up being a April Fool's Day
joke.
Prank. Anyway, I love April Fool's Day. I'm not the best prankster in the world. That's not my particular forte.
Oh.
I'd like to be better at pranks.
Well, as your bandmate, I appreciate that.
Yeah, but mainly I'm just better at lying than I am at pranks.
Well, that's kind of what April Fool's is in a way. I mean, just lie about, you make up a lie or a story that's untrue, and then you try to tell it as if it is true, and then
And
And you go, ha ha.
I've never quite understood why you're a fool if you believe your friend. Like, are you a fool then for having that person as a friend?
For trusting them.
Yeah. Like when somebody just tells you something terrible, like, you know, like they just start like, oh my God, is that real? And they're like, no, fooled you. And
Right.
You're a jerk, man.
Yep.
Like we've met people who just will, I remember at least one venue we played where somebody's prank or whatever was just lying about their name.
I remember that totally. It was in Lafayette, Indiana.
Yeah, he's like, hey, that guy's real name is George, but he tells everybody to call him Rick, and that's like
And
his
this is
prank.
like after we had been calling him that all night. I think he just told us that was his name. Like
it was like a
supposed to
dude
be
from another
joke on us.
and it was like a dude from another band.
I don't know.
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
really
okay.
strange, and it wasn't funny.
No, it wasn't like something clever, like, oh, you really got me good this time. It was like, you just lied about your name. If I'd gone and be like, you know, hi, my name is Pablo, and everybody starts calling me Pablo, I'd be like, okay, and I'm the whitest guy in the world, but I've met really white guys who are named Pablo. You know, even
Sure.
the guy that plays Porn Stash in Orange Is the New Black, his real name is Pablo, and he doesn't look Hispanic, right?
Right.
So you don't have to be a certain, you know, you can just, or you're like, oh, that's an interesting thing, and you try to understand somebody, or try to be like, okay, that's
Right,
you're meeting someone for the first time.
The default is to believe what they're saying.
Yeah. Anyway, so April Fools, you're an idiot for being friends with me.
Well, the other thing it makes me think about is how frequently in our language we use or start things with, to be honest with you, and then a statement, or to tell you the truth, and then a statement. It's like, why do you have to disclaim that that's the truth? Are you not normally telling me the truth?
Right. Who are you lying to? This is not Match.com. There's no reason to lie to me.
Nice. It's funny because it's almost like a habit. We say it all the time. And when you think about what you're actually saying, to tell you the truth, because normally I'm not telling you the truth, but this time for this 1 minute, I'm going to tell you the truth.
Right.
Just
Normally I'm straight up
interesting.
lying to you. Today I'm going to be honest. It absolutely does feel like that when you say that. And, you know, I always say, you know, to be perfectly honest. Ooh, so what were you doing beforehand?
Or any other statement. Are you not being perfectly honest?
Yeah. Like you're lying to me in some ways. Well, April Fool's Day is the day where it's okay to lie to people.
All right.
That's right. So watch out, Madison. Here I come, April 1st.
He said, you heard him say he's good at it.
Right. I'm good at lying, not good at pranks. Okay, April Fool's Day, the origins. Where did it come from? Why are we talking about it?
Yeah, this is
today?
weird.
There's several different places where we could have gotten April Fool's Day from. Now this is from the Witchology website, and they say it's what seems certain is that in some way or other it's a relic of those once universal festivals held at the vernal equinox, which just happened last week, the spring equinox, where
My birthday.
your birthday, where it's equally dark and light in equal measure. I used equal a lot. But we are talking about
The sweetener?
equinox. Yes. No real sugar for me, please. The old New Year's Day was the 25th of March. So that's when people used to celebrate New Year, was on the vernal equinox.
Oh, okay.
So the party started on the 25th of March and it ended on the 1st of April. And so a lot of people said that's where the tradition came from, because it was like a New Year's fooling tradition. Like you'd play pranks on the New Year. And they said they did it in ancient Rome, and they also did it in India. They've got a Holi festival, and the last day of the festival is March 31st. And the chief amusement of the Holi festival is sending people on fruitless errands.
Awesome.
Yes.
That's pretty funny.
That's the thing. Like when you say, like, go get me some chips or something like that, and they come, I'm not really hungry, I guess is how they do the Holi
I
festival.
got you good.
Right. So that's one of the traditions of where it came from. The Odd Random Thoughts blog says, well, how does that relate to April Fool's Day? Since the beginning of the new year was March 25th, that day often fell on a Holy Week. April, it's Easter time. We were just talking about Lent. So they postpone the celebration sometimes until the end of Holy Week after Easter, because remember, Easter's during Lent, and so no parties during Lent because you're not even supposed to eat meat and all that kind of business.
Gotta be good.
And so you wait until after Easter Sunday, and a lot of times the celebrations then were postponed until April 1st. Now, French King Charles IX in 1582 changed the Julian calendar to the Gregorian calendar, and that changed the beginning of the year to January 1st. Okay, so one of the theories is that those who refused to accept the new calendar were considered, quote-unquote, April Fools, and people teased them and liked to send them on impossible missions, hence the name A Fool's Errand. And so one of the jokes was that French peasants would show up at their families' houses for the New Year's celebrations when it wasn't January 1st, and the idea was to scare them, like, oh my God, we're not ready, things aren't happening. So I guess it was that kind of hospitality scare, like when a friend calls you unannounced and is like, hey, can I stay at your house tonight? So that was an April Fool. So that's one of the ideas. It's unlikely they say that one is correct, because French and Dutch have references to April Fool's Day even earlier than the 16th century.
Okay.
So it sounds like this thing has been going on for time immemorial. Now there's a hoax. There's an April Fool's Day joke, actually, that was picked up a while ago and has been propagating on the internet.
Okay.
That April Fools started out, a professor of history at Boston University named Joseph Boskin said that the practice began during the reign of Constantine, when a group of court jesters and fools told the Roman emperor that they could do a better job of running the empire. Constantine allowed a jester named Kugel to be king for one day, and Kugel passed an edict calling for absurdity on the day, and the custom became an annual event.
Okay.
So, in a way, explained Professor Boskin, it was a very serious day. In those times, fools really were wise men. It was the role of jesters to put things in perspective with humor.
Wow.
Now, Professor Boskin says that to the Associated Press in 1983, and it gets printed by like hundreds of newspapers across the United States as the official history of April Fools.
Oh, wait for it.
And then a couple of weeks later, he's like, hey, I gotcha. April Fool. So he
Terrible.
April Fools about April Fools on April Fools.
And thereby made it so no one ever used him as a reference again for anything.
Right. But you can still find it in some places on the internet that's an
funny.
official.
That's pretty good.
That's the official history of April Fools. Like some people will use that as a reference. And, they'll sit there, they'll find one of those original stories like in Google News or something.
Yeah.
And they'll use that as a reference for their own article on April Fools,
gosh.
not realizing that there was an addendum 2 weeks later that said, you're an idiot. So anyway, watch out that. So we don't really know where April Fools came from, but we do know that it's after the spring equinox. So it's probably part of the festivities because people like to party when spring happens.
That's true.
Like us in Wisconsin, Like we were just complaining about the snow, but we know that by April 1st, the snow will be gone.
Yep. And as soon as it is, it's going to be get outside.
Right.
Celebrate, enjoy.
Yep. And so that's a reason they celebrate. And it's also a reason to make you run fruitless errands.
Right.
Okay. I didn't realize there were superstitions on April Fool's Day.
I didn't either.
Yeah, but like any good holiday, there are superstitions on April Fool's Day. Number 1, pranks are to be performed before noon.
Oh, no. Seriously?
Yeah. So April Fool's Day pranks. So don't try like at like midnight or something or like 11:59 because it's supposed to bring you bad luck.
Oh, so if you try to prank somebody afternoon,
then you're the fool.
if you're an afternoon pranker.
Yeah, if you're an afternoon prankster.
Got it.
So just remember that. So when you're thinking of the stuff to do to people this Friday, try to get it in the morning.
But another thing that's good about that is you can avoid legitimate pranks by sleeping past noon.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Because then even if somebody gets you with a prank, like they're going to have bad luck, so the joke's going to be on them.
That's true. So to protect
your afternoon.
So to protect yourself on April Fool's Day, I want you to go out Thursday night, get really drunk, sleep in, call in sick to work, or even don't call in at all.
Oh, man.
And then what you can do is when you come into work or whatever afternoon and they're like, you're fired, you just tell them, you're like, I don't appreciate that April Fool's joke. And you know what? The bad luck's going to be on you because it's afternoon.
Sucker.
So what we just gave you is a recipe for greatness.
There you go.
So just that's just a little plan you guys can do this April Fool's.
See, we're trying to be helpful here.
Yeah, this is news you can use on See You on the Other Side podcast. Okay, so now also anyone who fails to respond with a sense of humor, if you don't have a good humor about a trick being played on them, like let's say you get intermittent explosive disorder right after somebody pulls a prank on you, then chances are you're going to have bad luck too. But I also think the people who don't like tricks or like can't take a joke or whatever, I would be surprised if they didn't have bad luck very often. Because chances are you're the kind of person that nobody likes to hang around anyway if you can't take a joke. So lighten up with the rage. Don't punch a guy or a girl just because they pull a prank on you.
Definitely.
And because IED doesn't work in court.
And also, another thing that you can do now is you can laugh about it and you can put a little reminder in your phone for next year so that you can get the person back.
Right, or even a little reminder the next day. It's like, okay, like put the reminder in your phone, like remind me to stab this person tomorrow. That's what I originally thought you were going to say.
That's no.
You can try to get the person back next year, or you can kill them later.
It's just we have these tools at our disposal, smartphones, calendars. And before, in the olden days, if you will, when you had just the paper calendar on the wall, well, it's April 1st, so you don't see it until you're actually on the day, right?
Right.
You don't flip the calendar until the first day of the month, so it's already too late. Somebody got you. But you can put a little reminder in your phone now. And
to get them back next year. That is a good tip.
Either to get them back next year or just put in a recurring reminder to not get fooled.
Yeah, right. A reminder in the morning, so as soon as you wake up, it'll be like, remember, it's April Fool's Day.
Yep.
Hey,
Don't
jerk.
believe anything you hear.
It's April Fool's Day. Do not believe things.
Mm-hmm.
So put that, or if you look, okay, so this week, here's a tip. If you look at your phone for the first time in the day and there's a 1, like a big 1 on the calendar, like on every computer you're going to look at for this, that day, just be like, you know what? I'm going to look at things with skepticism today and I'm not going to share it on Facebook.
Hear, hear. Hear, hear.
Okay, so that's a couple of the superstitions. Oh, it's also said that one fooled by a pretty girl will later marry or at least become friends with her.
Oh, that's kind of weird. Why? That's
I don't
strange.
know. Well, I mean, think about it. If the girl likes you enough to pull a prank on you,
okay.
Chances are she wants to spend more time with you, I think. So I would say that superstition probably came from like people getting attention.
Yeah, or the fact that maybe pretty girls don't prank people very often. So
right. So when they do, it's like, whoa, what's this about? Hey,
what's happening here?
Hey now. So I'd say that's not bad luck to get pranked by a pretty girl, unless it's horribly embarrassing. Like it's something like,
oh gosh,
you know what I mean? Like if you ever seen Mean Girls,
like
if
sitting
it's
on a whoopee cushion or something,
right?
Like,
well. Even something small like that might be funny, but if it's horribly embarrassing, like your pants pulled down in the middle of gym class or something in front of everybody, and then she's the first one saying, "Hey, everybody, look," and then you're just sitting there, and everyone's laughing at you. Yeah, I'd say that's not a good sign. But if it's something cute, then I think you're okay. Then I think it's okay to become friends with that person. So speaking of love. It is believed that marriage on April Fool's Day is inadvisable for a man because he will be permanently ruled by his wife. So it just seems like April Fool's Day is a bad day to get married for a guy because it'll be an imbalanced relationship with your wife taking the lead.
What's up with that, though? I don't get that. Why is it bad luck for the man, not the opposite way?
Well, I just, this is probably one of the superstitions that
like
came from
old. I understand. It's just.
I think all of these are superstitions that came from an older time.
You think?
Yeah, it's like, oh, you got fooled by a pretty girl. You're going to marry her. Great. That probably comes from like, that's the only other girl in the village. So she pranks you on April Fool's Day. Of course you're going to marry her because you have to raid another town to even find another girl. So, yeah. So anyway, so guys, just a tip. Be careful getting married on April Fool's Day. Children born on this day will experience good luck in most matters.
Yay.
Except for gambling.
Boo.
Yeah, that's right. So don't think, I'm going to have kids on April 1st and this kid's going to have a charmed life and then take him right to the casino.
That's weird. Oh, he's so lucky. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, go to the blackjack table.
That's it, right. So, like, don't tell that kid, like, oh, you were born April Fool's Day, you're lucky, and then all of a sudden they lose the house. Like, that could be your fault.
Well, at least it's good luck in most matters except gambling, not like except health or love or something like that.
Right.
Like, gambling, that's fine. Whatever. Can live without it.
Yeah, gambling's a tough one. You never want to say, like, this child is going to be very lucky in gambling, because I think you're probably introducing that child to a lifetime of hurt.
Right.
Hey, how would you like a crappy life with a side of broken relationships?
Oh.
You're going to be a great gambler, son. Okay.
Yeah. Interesting. Very
So,
interesting.
the origins, superstitions, April Fool's Day. Now we should talk about pranks. What are some of the best April Fool's Day pranks of all time? Wendy, what is the best April Fool's Day prank that was ever done on you?
Oh, man. Well, one time, so this is, I was a little kid.
Right.
So let's just, I don't even know how little, but
You
little
were
enough to believe
16.
little enough to believe everything my dad said to me. So
Okay.
he was on a business trip somewhere and he called and he said, "You're never going to believe it. I was driving." And he started telling the story about driving down, the highway, and it started raining. And then all of a sudden he started hearing big thumping sounds. And he told me that it was raining pumpkins. And I just remember talking to him and just being like, and cause he had painted a real nice picture, a very detailed picture. And as a child, and you're like, visualizing this and you're like, oh my gosh, how is that? That's crazy. It was really raining pumpkins. That's so amazing. And then he said April Fools and I was like, what? And that's where it all started.
Okay.
So ever since then, I've been a little more cautious on April Fool's Day.
Well, he wasn't driving through Springfield, Massachusetts, was he?
Nice. No?
Because West Springfield High School has a competition called the Pumpkin Chunkin' in October. And so they launch pumpkins from catapults, slingshots, centripetal machines, and trebuchets.
Yeah, so 35 years later, I find out that this actually was true.
It was all true. I thought it was a prank, Dad. You scarred me.
I don't think he was driving through there, but that's kind of crazy that something like that actually
that happens. People do chunk pumpkins, but that's a
chunk pumpkins, pumpkin chunkin'.
And so so
what
anyway,
about you?
That's a pretty good one. That's a pretty good one.
I mean, that was as a child. I've had other creative things happen at the workplace and stuff like that as an adult, which were pretty funny.
But that's the one that actually got you.
Yeah,
like you were gotten.
Got me good.
You're like, oh my god, I can't believe it's raining pumpkins.
Yeah,
and then years later, you're like, I was a fool. So
how about you? What was the best prank anybody got you with on April Fool's Day?
Well, I was a child as well.
Okay.
And I woke up, it was a Sunday morning, and there were Oreo cookies out.
I just ate some of those.
And I was like, wow. And we were a cookie family. Like, sweets were eaten regularly, but nobody ever left out cookies or anything like that. Like, there wasn't just cookies just hanging out on a plate or
like
whatever.
Christmas Eve
in the
waiting
kitchen.
for Santa.
Yeah. But I'm like, well, look at this. Well, I'm 6 years old. Right. So I'm like, I see Oreos and I'm the first one up, probably to watch whatever cartoon or Sunday mornings was reading, like the Munsters or something I got excited about. And so I'm like, oh, awesome cookies. So I start eating them. I'm like, man, these taste funny.
Okay.
Like weird. These taste, I can't quite, but I had 6 of them.
Oh my gosh. You just kept eating them even though they tasted funny?
Yeah. I'm like, whatever. I'm like, they're still cookies. Mike. And so I had 6 of them. My sister wakes up a little while later. She walks into the kitchen. She has a cookie. She's like, oh, God, what is this? What is it? Dumps them up and then leaves, but doesn't say anything to me about it. She just is like, gross, and walks away. And then my mother wakes up. She's like, oh, did you like the cookies I left out? And I'm like, well, it was nice you leave out cookies, Ma, but, I don't know if these are, they say Oreo on them, but I don't think these are Oreos. Like, I think there was a mistake at the factory. And she's like, that's because it's not Oreo filling, it's Pepsodent.
So the cream filling
was Pepsodent.
Oh man, nice one.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the best part was I ate 6 of them.
That is hilarious, Mike.
Like I wouldn't stop. Yeah, and I was just like, yeah,
funny.
but when you're young and there's some things just taste weird sometimes, or just you try a different food and you're like, I remember that I didn't have orange juice after chocolate until I was maybe 11 years old.
Yeah, well, that's gross.
And right, but I didn't know that.
Huh?
I didn't realize that. So I'm at some Cub Scout thing, and we're eating all these chocolate chip cookies, and then the den mother or whatever is like, "Oh, who wants something to drink?" And I'm like, "Oh, I have orange juice." Just thinking, I love orange juice. I love chocolate chip cookies.
Why not?
And then I'm like, "Are you sure this is orange juice?"
Something's not right.
Because I don't want them to buy the wrong thing. I'm like, I think you bought the wrong thing because this is grapefruit juice. This is not orange juice.
Wow.
Anyway, so that was probably the best. Like, that's the one time I'm like, boy, you got me. You got me good.
Got me good.
So my mother got me real good April Fool's Day in like 1983 or something like that.
Funny. Was she pleased with her with the outcome of her prank?
Oh yes. Oh
that's
yes.
great.
She was delighted.
Oh, that's awesome.
So there's been some other good April Fool's Day pranks over time. Like this is one of my favorites. March 31st, 1989. Thousands of motorists driving on the highway outside London look up in the air to see a glowing flying saucer descending on their city.
Wow.
Many of them pull to the roadside to watch the bizarre craft float through the air. Finally lands in a field on the outskirts of London where local residents immediately call the police to warn them of an alien invasion. Soon the police arrive on the scene and one brave officer approaches the craft, and when the door in the craft pops open, a small silver-suited figure emerged.
Cool.
The policeman runs away.
It wasn't Ziggy Stardust, was it?
No, it was Richard Branson.
Oh, sweet.
So
now that's going for it, man.
Yeah, and he was doing a stunt for Virgin Records, and he also loves balloons. Like you always see Richard Branson in a hot air balloon, whatever, talking like, "I'm the richest man in the world."
I'd be worried that somebody would just pull out a gun and shoot you or something like, "Oh, yeah, it's an alien! Get him!"
He was planning to land it in Hyde Park on April 1st,
okay.
But the wind blew him off course, and he's forced to land a day early in the wrong location. So
it wasn't even on April Fool's Day?
It was March 31st.
Oh, man. Prank gone wrong.
Yeah, so the prank goes a little bit wrong, but it still scares the crap out of a whole bunch of people in London.
I bet. Okay, and that's pretty funny.
And it's funny, they pretty much reference it in a Doctor Who first season. The reboot of Doctor Who has an episode called The Aliens of London.
Okay.
Where they have a spaceship crash land, and it's like a silver-suited, like, pig-style alien. And that's all a hoax, too. So they kind of reference that March 31st, 1989 stunt in the episode Aliens of London from Doctor Who in the first season. I would recommend that episode only for completists. If you've not seen Doctor Who, it sucks. So don't bother.
Oh.
And it hurts me to say that about Doctor Who, but that's an embarrassing one. So I thought that was a good prank, and we can keep up the alien pranks here because they've been done all throughout time. Now, let's go back to 1950, and we've often talked about flying saucers, aliens, 1950, Roswell.
Yes, we have.
And so the Wiesbadener Tagblatt, which is a German newspaper, the Wiesbadener Tagblatt.
Oh, yeah, that, okay.
Yeah, you know it. You have a subscription. I've seen your subscription to it. Like, I've been over to Wendy's house, and I'm like, "Hey, you got the new Wiesbadener Tagblatt?" And she's like, "Yeah, I have. It's so good."
What's that?
I don't know. That's your German accent. That's how it sounds.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know.
So, April Fool's Day 1950, they published a photo called Martian in the USA, showing American soldiers accompanying a one-legged creature with a large head and a very small body. Right. So everybody's thinking Roswell.
Yeah, it sounds familiar.
So it actually goes into the UFO research community because later on the photo shows up and people just find the photo. They just see the clipping.
Mm-hmm.
People even send a clipping to the FBI not saying that it was like a hoax. And then the FBI files it away and then has to release it to a UFO researcher in 1979 after the researcher files the Freedom of Information Act request.
Oh, man.
And then it gets put in a book a year later called The Roswell Incident.
Okay.
In 1980, and the Roswell Incident is one of the first books that kind of reignited that interest in Roswell after the 1940s. So, it wasn't really a Martian. Remember, after the Second World War, we had army bases all over Germany. Obviously to make sure that World War III didn't happen. And American soldiers posted there, and they thought it would be a fun thing to do on April Fool's Day. Is the Americans thought they'd, at the Wiesbaden U.S. Army base, they posed with the photographer's 5-year-old son. And so they originally posed with the son, and then he, like the photographer, put like the special effect of like the mask and the alien over his son's body in the picture. So it's like the first example of like a Photoshop.
Like a face swap, only.
Yeah. Only with an alien. And the funny thing is it just gets collected over time. And it was just in this newspaper, in this German newspaper in 1950. And the Americans thought it'd be a funny, they thought it'd be funny. And then it gets reprinted in the Roswell book 30 years later.
Oh my gosh.
So that's the kind of April Fool's Day prank. And
that's serious stuff, man.
Yeah. And that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we can even go back. Let's go all the way back.
Oh man, here we go, baby.
1848, March 31st, April Fool's Eve. 14-year-old Maggie Fox and her 11-year-old sister Kate report a recurring mysterious phenomenon in their bedroom. And this is taken from the greatest paranormal hoaxes on howstuffworks.com. Okay? So, every night as the two went to sleep in their clapboard farmhouse, they would hear a strange knocking sound coming from the walls. Even stranger, the knocking seemed to respond to their questions. If you were an injured spirit manifested by 3 raps, says the girl's mother. And they said the veil dividing the spirit world and the living had been breached. Now this is in the heyday of, right before the heyday of spiritualism. Because remember, spiritualism gets really crazy after the Civil War and then after the First World War. But the idea of spiritualism and mediums talking to the dead and holding seances is a big thing in the mid-19th century.
That's right.
So, I mean, these girls became famous. And when does it start? The night of March 31st, 1848 is when they started. And so, like, they got famous, they got rich, they had a whole, like, seances started out as simple knocking and rapping, and like rapping on a door, not like, my name is MCM and I'm here to say I like dead people in a major way.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Right.
Thanks.
You bet. Just so you knew what kind of rapping.
Thanks for clarifying that one. I totally thought it was MC Hammer, but
right.
Now I know.
And so they started off in the small town of Massachusetts and eventually became like a big draw in New York City, and crowds and secret messages magically would appear on cards. And this went on for decades. So, but it's got kind of a sad ending.
Oh no.
Despite their fame, or more likely because of it, the sisters suffered from troubled relationships, psychological breakdowns, and alcoholism. In her 50s, one of the Fox sisters, Maggie, delivered a public confession of their long-drawn hoax, which started as a harmless childhood prank. At bedtime, they would tie an apple on a string and move it up and down, causing the apple to bump on the floor. The sisters later developed the ability to manipulate their knuckles and toes to produce a popping sound.
Ew.
Hey, it made them rich.
I know, but that's...
And also led to psychological breakdowns and alcoholism.
It is clever. It's a clever prank.
Yeah, and it finally answers the question we've all been wondering. What does the fox say? Okay. Thank you. We'll be here all week. OtherSidePodcast.com. New music at SunspotUniverse.com. Try the chicken salad. Okay, here's a more modern April Fool's Day prank. We were at 1848. Let's jump to 2014. Okay?
Here we go.
So, NPR posts an article to Facebook that says, "Why doesn't America read anymore?" It shows a picture of a library. The question they ask is like, what has become of our brains? So there's hundreds of responses on Facebook. It's NPR. Millions of people like NPR, especially their page. So they see that, and then people start arguing with each other, start talking about it. They're like, I think people tend to read more with the rise of the internet. We have evolved past the paperback. And then, of course, it's NPR. This other person's like, I read 2 to 3 books per week. My teen kids read. Their friends read. And so it's the same crap. People just, like, oh, I'm a reader. And another person's like, I'm, like, it's because Americans are stupid. And it's just the usual Facebook crap back and forth. Okay. If they would have clicked through to the article to actually read it, it says, congratulations, genuine readers, and happy April Fool's Day.
Awesome.
We sometimes get the sense that some people are commenting on NPR stories that they haven't actually read. If you are reading this, please like this post and do not comment on it. Then let's see what people have to say about this quote-unquote story.
Funny.
Right. Best wishes and have an enjoyable day. Your friends at NPR.
Oh, they're so clever.
P.S. Send us money.
They are so clever. That's a very interesting experiment.
Yeah. And it's a good experiment. I mean, one of the songs off the new release, American Monsters, uses monsters as a metaphor for the internet outrage machine.
Yeah.
And that's just, I thought that was a good example from NPR of them kind of showing that half the time you see people commenting on some kind of article or whatever, they haven't even looked at it. They just read the headline, thought that was enough.
Yeah, and that happens all the time too with untrue stories that people share on Facebook, and then you go to Snopes or whatever, and it's totally not true.
Yes. Oh,
but
yeah.
They just read the headline and they're like, no, I must show my rage.
Right. And I've been seeing more and more fake stories lately. Mm-hmm. So the latest one I saw was, Brian Johnson, the lead singer of AC/DC, who had replaced Bon Scott originally. We talk about the ghost of Bon Scott in our interview with Susan Messino.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
But Brian Johnson, he replaced Bon Scott for the album Back in Black, starting the album Back in Black. And he had to quit the latest AC/DC tour because his doctor said that if he does not, he will completely lose his hearing. His hearing loss is at such an extreme. And I've heard their concerts are buck wild loud.
I'm sure.
It's AC/DC. Oh, yeah. It's going to be buck wild loud. And just plus the way the guy sings is like, oh, yeah. He sings at he's got to sing at such a high volume with the high voice and just the screeching and all that. I mean, he sounds like he's being tortured. That's part of the fun. But his ears really were being tortured.
That's really sad.
Yeah. And so Bon Scott had to leave AC/DC. Aww. So what's the latest rumor? Oh, no. Axl Rose is going to be replacing Bon Scott on tour. And that Malcolm Young, who is AC/DC's rhythm guitarist, the brother of Angus Young, the main driving force behind AC/DC, that his son was the one that said that, Axl Rose is ready, and agreed to it. And so that's one of the things. And then all of a sudden people start sharing it and they're like, oh my God, Axl Rose and AC/DC for real? Right. That's awesome. And they get all excited about it.
Or the opposite of that. Oh my God, I can't believe it.
Right. And Axl Rose, who they just announced the Guns N' Roses reunion, right? Hell freezes over.
Right.
That Axl Rose and Slash have buried their differences. So that's the latest rumor. And also I've been seeing these other ones lately. And if I spend too much time on social media, I really do spend too much time on social media. I
do too.
And on social media today, I just read an article that said that people who frequently use social media tend to 3 times more depressed than people who don't.
Oh, I believe that.
Yeah, that they are telling the truth. Because I get depressed about the fact that I sit on the internet instead of actually living a life.
Right, and just reading all the angry and sad and negative comments. There's positive ones too.
No, now that Facebook has a love button, my life has changed. Because I love things now instead of just liking them. Because I don't want to do things half. I want to love it.
Love, man.
Yeah, I don't just want to like something. I want to love it. And also, it's more fun to love something than it is to like something.
Totally.
And so the other kind of article that I've been seeing lately is some celebrity is going to live in this town. Like Will Ferrell is going to move to Lafayette, Indiana, or something like that. Okay. Or
right.
So some celebrities, going to move to that town. It's a fake news site. Then we'll have the article, and they have it about all these different sites over the internet. Like all these different cities, like smaller cities, where of course if
people are going to get excited about it.
Someone famous is going to move to a particular town. Or I think I saw one about Merrill, Wisconsin, which is a town we play in, which is a small town in northern Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And it had something like The Walking Dead to film an episode in Merrill, Wisconsin.
Oh my gosh.
And people were clicking on it and commenting on it and all this kind of stuff. It's like, I mean, First of all, there is no film industry in Merrill, Wisconsin, so it'd be very difficult to bring everybody over, like the Atlanta-based film crew. But they do that with all a very popular show or a very popular celebrity is coming to this small town. And so everybody from the small town will then click on it, and then it doesn't say April Fool or anything. It just actually lists the article. So then people don't just go back to the article, they go back to the link and be like, this is BS. And so that's a way for the people to click.
And then they try to sell them advertising.
Bingo. And so, I mean, that's turning us all into a fool because you can't believe anything that you read on the internet. I mean, not that we didn't know that for years. Don't believe anything you read on the internet.
Still, talk about wasting time. I mean,
right.
Clicking on articles that are not even that are fake. That's just
right. Not even good ones. So the thing is, if you live in a small town, or let's say if we saw that Will Ferrell was moving to Madison, Wisconsin, we'd have to be like, yeah, I don't know if I believe that.
Mm-hmm.
Like the big celebrity that moved to Madison, Wisconsin was the chick from the Go-Go's.
Oh, wait, let's not forget about the Fonz.
Well, his daughter.
Oh, that's right.
Daughter went to the.
She was going to school here, but okay.
And David Lynch's daughter, David Lynch, the great film director, the man behind Twin Peaks, his daughter also did go to school in Madison, and he did own a house in Verona.
Okay, there you go.
So I mean, I'm not saying it never happens. I'm just saying if somebody said like Will Smith buys an apartment on State Street, don't believe it.
All right.
We got a couple more good April Fool's Day pranks. And man, there's so much to do with the paranormal and April Fool's Day and April Fool's Day hoaxes. And the fact that other newspapers reprint this stuff. All right. So this is from hoaxes.org.
Oh boy.
April Fool's Day 1972. On the morning of Friday, March 31st, 1972, an 8-member team of scientists from Yorkshire's Flamingo Park Zoo were having breakfast in the dining room of the Foyers House Hotel on the shore of Loch Ness. They were there in a joint mission with the Loch Ness Phenomena Bureau to prove the existence of a monster in the loch. They had developed a new form of hormone sex bait that they hoped would lure Nessie out of the depths. Okay. Now, this is just me commenting the story here. That's where things become unbelievable, because to get the idea that, like, first of all, how these guys develop it, and second of all, would you want to all excited, sexually excited plesiosaur coming at you? That would be terrifying. Oh, let me at that. And you're like, oh God. So we're gonna prove the Loch Ness monster through hormones and sex. So I just would be scared by that.
That's fair.
So the manager of the hotel approaches them. She says someone just called to report seeing a large hump floating in the loch near the hotel. Intrigued, the team puts down their knives and forks, walks outside. Sure enough, a large dark object was bobbing up and down the waves about 300 yards offshore. 20 minutes later, around 9 a.m., they return, dragging behind them a bizarre object, and it appears to be the dead body of the Loch Ness monster.
No, Nessie. They killed Nessie?
Right. So Nessie, well, it got so turned on it had a heart attack.
Oh God!
It's like, woo! I haven't felt this way in 40,000 years.
Oh.
And so reporters start rushing in to get details. Television news anchors solemnly report to their audiences that the Loch Ness monster has been finally found, but it's dead. Robert McKenzie, 23-year-old local musician, says, I touched it, I put my hand in its mouth. It's real, all right. I thought it had looked like half bear and half seal, green in color, with a horrific head like a bear with flat ears. I was shocked.
Wow. And, leave it to the local musician to give you the reporting there.
Right, because, who else at 9 o'clock in the morning is probably baked enough to talk about the Loch Ness monster? It's like, yeah, I touched it, man.
Dude, I totally saw it.
It's half bear and half seal. Other witnesses tell reporters the creature was between 12 and 18 feet in length and must have weighed up to 1.5 tons. Green body without scales, and was like a cross between the walrus and a seal. The director of the Flamingo Park Zoo comes out and says, I've always been skeptical about the Loch Ness monster, but this is definitely a monster, no doubt about that. From the reports I've had, no one has ever seen anything like it before. A fishy, scaly body with a massive head and big, protruding teeth. Front page headlines, the Los Angeles Times, April 1st, 1972. They start reporting it. The British press dubbed the creature Son of Nessie.
Wow.
Okay. And so, they take the body with them. The Flamingo Park Zoo team takes the body with them. They load it in the truck. So now nobody's seeing the body.
Okay.
And like even the police department has to come check it out because there's a 1933 Act of Parliament that prohibits the removal of an unidentified creature from Loch Ness.
Wow, somebody was thinking ahead.
Right? So like the Parliament had thought of this before, and they're like, hey, you can't just run off with this thing because it's an unidentified creature from from Loch Ness. All right. Eventually it gets to Michael Rushton, who is the general curator of the Edinburgh Zoo, and he comes up and looks at it. Looks at it a few times, pokes it, and says, sure, it was a strange creature, but it's a bull elephant seal, whose natural home was the South Atlantic Ocean thousands of miles away, and the body showed signs of being frozen for an extended period of time. His quote, it's a typical member of its species, about 3 to 4 years old. I have never known them to come near Great Britain. Their natural habitat is the South Atlantic, Falkland Islands, or South Georgia. Not Atlanta, Georgia, but that other Georgia.
Yeah.
The Russian Georgia.
Yes.
I don't know how long it's been kept in a deep freeze, but this is obviously done by some human hand. Well, John Shields, the Flamingo Park Zoo's education officer, finally admits to it. He was an expedition of the Falkland Islands had recently brought the seal back to the UK. It lived at the Dudley Zoo, but it died soon after arrival. And as soon as he learned about it, he realized it was the perfect opportunity to prank his colleagues, who he knew they were. So this is not one of the guys that was involved in the team who was up at Loch Ness looking for the monster. This is another guy that works at the zoo.
And he knows those guys, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He knows them. He knows they're going up on some kind of Loch Ness expedition.
That's pretty funny.
He gets the seal, shaves off its whiskers, pads its cheek with stones, and keeps it frozen for a week. Then he sneaks up there, dumps it in the loch, and then calls in the tip to the hotel.
Oh, man.
He timed the prank to the news of the discovery of the Loch Ness Monster would make headlines on April 1st, April Fool's Day, which also happened to be his 23rd birthday.
I have to respect that guy.
So it makes it in the Geneva. Yeah, it makes it in all these newspapers along the world. And it's 9 foot long, so it wasn't a small thing. It still was 9 foot long and 350 pounds. But it wasn't like 18 feet long.
That's not what you think. When I think of Nessie, I think of like dinosaur size.
Right, you think of a plesiosaur.
Yeah.
I mean, this also has a nice Wisconsin connection.
Ooh.
So 2 weeks later, a 20-year-old Norman Slater, a school teacher from Kenosha, Wisconsin, went on a fishing trip to the loch. While floating along, he dipped his hand into the water. He later said that as soon as he did so, he detected, by means of his ESP, the presence of 6 large creatures in the water, a family of Loch Ness monsters. Slater said that he saw a particularly vivid image of a creature 70 to 90 feet in length, so monster size.
Yeah, that's more like it.
With a large neck and a slim worm-like body. Its bottom portion was white, while its top was dark brown and scaly. He said the creatures seemed to just be lying around in the bottom. And he could also claim to see images of underground passageways connecting the loch to the sea. But he was a victim of bad timing. He complained that despite the obvious scientific importance of his ESP vision, because of the recent April 1st prank, he couldn't find any reporters willing to take him seriously.
Mwah, 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 mwah. So that could have actually been Nessie, but...
Kenosha coming through.
Yep. Oh. Man, that was a lot of Nessie talk, but I love Nessie.
Yeah, I love Nessie too. And, it's funny. First of all, the Kenosha connection, he's a school teacher. Can you imagine, like, your school teacher coming into class and just being like, dude, I saw the Loch Ness Monster in a vision, man.
It was there. I know it.
The 70s were a different time. It just feels like dazed and confused.
Yeah.
There was also one more story, and this has also got a Wisconsin connection.
Wow.
April 1st, 1933. So let's go back in the Wayback Machine. We're going back 83 years from this April Fool's Day. The front page of the Madison Capital Times announces with a large headline that the Wisconsin State Capitol building is in ruins following a series of mysterious explosions. These explosions were attributed to large quantities of gas, probably like IED, the intermittent explosive disorder. The explosives were attributed to large quantities of gas generated through many weeks of verbose debate in the Senate and Assembly chambers.
That's funny.
Accompanying the article was a picture showing the Capitol building collapsing. It probably wouldn't fool many people nowadays, but by all accounts, it fooled quite a few people at the time. Readers were outraged. One reader wrote in declaring the hoax not only tactless and void of humor, but also a hideous jest. In fact, the Capitol building exploding because of a buildup of hot air was a fairly old joke, even in 1933. So that was listed on the top 100 April Fool's Day hoaxes of all time was Wisconsin State Capitol.
That's pretty good. It would never fly nowadays, though. That would no one would find that funny.
No, I guess in the post 9/11, we don't find buildings like collapsing or exploding. And there already was a tragedy at the Wisconsin State Capitol in the 1880s where the roof collapsed while they were working on it. And several people died. And they talk about that causing a haunting in the Wisconsin State Capitol. And you can hear more about that at MadisonGhostWalks.
I learned it at the actual tour.
So anyway, everybody set a reminder on April 1st for when you wake up to let people know that you're no fool.
That's right. And if you have a good April Fool's story, something that either happened to you or a prank maybe you pulled on somebody else, feel free to share it with us because those are interesting to hear about. You can tweet us at OthersideTalk, or you can email us, show@OthersidePodcast.com, or find us on Facebook, or any of those ways. And the show notes from today's episode are available at OthersidePodcast.com/85.
And this week's song is inspired by our April Fool's discussion, and it's simply called Fool. I've been hurt more times than I can count. I had my head smashed in and my guts pulled out. I've been cheated on, mistreated some, my heart held for ransom. Well, I'm the jerk in that piece of work who just can't figure out that this big bad world is cruel. So bury your soul deep and they never can hurt you. I know that it might be uncool, but I ain't got time to toe the line on trust issues. I got a body made for work and I got a heart made for abuse. I got a penchant for fast living and I'm stretching out my youth. I got a mind to keep on loving, don't care about the ugly truth. Well, we got all the cynics we need, so I'd rather play the fool. I've been wrong more times than you believe. I've had my faith tested and my kindness deceived. Well, I've been betrayed and led astray and the victim of foul play. And you might mock this laughing stock who won't concede naivete, because I know this big bad world is cruel. And if you bury your soul deep, then they never can hurt you. Well, I might sound just like a tool, but I ain't got time to toe the line on trust issues. I got a body made for work and I got a heart made for abuse. I got a penchant for fast living and I'm stretching out my youth. I got a mind to keep on loving, don't care about the ugly truth. Well, we got all the cynics we need, so I'd rather play the fool. I know this big bad world is cruel, and if you bury your soul deep, then they never can hurt you. I know I might sound like a tool, but I ain't got time to toe the line on trust issues. I got a body made for work and I got a heart made for abuse. I got a penchant for fast living and I'm stretching out my youth. I got a mind to keep on loving, don't care about the ugly truth. Well, we got all the cynics we need, so I'd rather play the fool.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. You can find us online at OthersidePodcast.com. Until next time, see you on the other side.
Would you want to all excited, sexually excited plesiosaur coming at you? That would be terrifying.